In this video, we're going to explore 10 of the most mysterious and incredible ancient archaeological sites from all across the globe. At each one of these sites, we find unsolved mysteries which are so baffling that I believe they have the potential to rewrite our entire understanding of human history. Over the course of this video, I'm going to discuss why, using nothing more than common sense, we can see that the builders of these ancient structures, whoever they were, they had knowledge and technological abilities way beyond anything that we currently understand. And this could be evidence of lost ancient civilizations. In fact, I'm now convinced that the evidence is overwhelming that highly advanced civilizations once flourished here on planet Earth, who we now have no knowledge of. Not only are these ancient unsolved mysteries fascinating to consider, I believe that new discoveries in this field have the potential to change life on Earth forever, to give us new insights into our place in the cosmos and some of life's greatest mysteries. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, I'm going to begin in Egypt, but not with the pyramids or the Sphinx. Even though they deserve to be on this list, I'm going to save those for a future video. What many people don't realize is that beneath the Giza Plateau, there is a huge underground network of tunnels and caverns, and just a few miles away from the Great Pyramid, we find what's called the Serapeum of Saqqara. This site is so fascinating and very difficult to logically explain. The age of this site is highly controversial, but it was rediscovered in the year 1850, and the Serapeum of Saqqara is an underground network of tunnels and chambers cut straight into the solid bedrock, which itself is a very impressive feat. But the most impressive part of this site is not the tunnels themselves, but what we find within. Inside these underground chambers, we find 25 massive stone boxes. And when I say massive, just look at the size of these things compared to a person. Each one of these 25 boxes weighs around 100 tons. That's 200,000 pounds, or the equivalent of 20 large elephants. And it's a complete mystery how the boxes got here, because despite being so huge, each box was somehow transported to this site from the Aswan Quarry, which is more than 800 kilometers away. And you also really have to wonder, why would they go to all this effort to masterfully carve and move and transport these stone boxes, only to bury them deep underground? Now, the official explanation is that each box was built as a sarcophagus for the burial of Apis bulls, which were seen as extremely sacred creatures in ancient Egypt. But there were no remains found in any of these boxes. All of these boxes were empty when they were discovered. So that's just our best guess. And regardless of why they were made, we have no explanation for how they were made. Each box is masterfully carved out of a single piece of stone, including the lid. And you can see that these are finished to a polish. These surfaces have been measured to be perfectly flat, to within 2/10,000ths of an inch. These are finished so perfectly that the lids form an airtight seal, and you can see that these right angles are just remarkably precise. And simply put, it is not possible to achieve this kind of finish on this big of a scale with a chisel and a hammer. We see on some of these boxes Egyptian hieroglyphics, so the Egyptians definitely used this site. But the thing is that these hieroglyphic inscriptions are clearly of lesser craftsmanship.
We can see the glyphs itself is very, very crude. The tool is hardly scratched the surface of the stone.
In my perspective, that is very compelling evidence that the Egyptians did not create these boxes, they simply discovered them and then claimed them as their own. So then who were the original creators? Let's move now to a site called Baalbek in Lebanon. Here at Baalbek, we find the biggest stone blocks ever cut, lifted, and moved in the world. These 3 stones here are called the Trilithon, and each one of these stones weighs around 1,000 tons. That's 2 million pounds. Just for some comparison, one of the largest rocks we've ever moved in modern times was 340 tons for an art installation, and to accomplish that feat, we needed a custom-built truck that was the size of a football field. And each one of these 3 stones here at Baalbek weighs 3 times as much, and they were moved and lifted from the quarry, which was more than a mile away. It's truly mind-boggling to ponder how these ancient builders cut and quarried and moved and lifted these stones. But it's not just the unbelievably massive scale, it's again the perfection of the craftsmanship. Look at the joinery of these massive stones. It looks like it was done with power tools. In my humble opinion, this was not done with a hammer and chisel. This required some sort of technology that we don't know about today. The construction of Baalbek is attributed to the Romans, and there's no disputing the fact that the Romans inhabited this site for many years and even built on top of it. But that doesn't mean that they constructed this megalithic foundation. If you look in ancient Rome itself, there are no stone constructions which even approach this scale. In my opinion, there's no doubt that this megalithic foundation existed prior to the Romans and were created by unknown builders of the past. The third mysterious ancient site is located in Bolivia and is called Puma Punku. Again, we find perfectly cut stones weighing in excess of 100 tons. Look at the way these flat surfaces and these right angles are cut into the hard rock with this level of detail and the smoothness of finish. It's just hard to imagine this being done with a hammer and chisel. And then there are all these extremely strange stones which are known as the H-blocks. And these H-blocks are famous because they're such complex shapes. Believe it or not, each H-block has up to 80 faces. 80 faces on one piece of stone. These are incredibly complex shapes, and yet they're all uniform. And it almost looks like they were somehow mass-produced, like they were poured into a mold or something to get the same exact shape. And again, it very much seems like whoever constructed these massive stone blocks was using some sort of precision technology, not only because of these amazing right angle corners, but we also find these drill holes, which are just seemingly inexplicable. I mean, how do you make this using primitive technology? And just like many of the sites I'll be discussing today, the stone here at Puma Punku has been quarried from around 100 kilometers away. How is it that our ancient ancestors are just easily moving around thousands of tons of stone when we struggle to do this today? Puma Punku is a great mystery. I haven't even scratched the surface of it. Apparently, this entire site itself is astronomically aligned, and on the first day of spring, the sun rises directly above the center of the temple. Trying to understand how our ancient ancestors pulled this one off is truly baffling, and the same goes for the next site I'll be talking about. Over here in Peru, we find the Nazca lines. In the middle of the desert, in the middle of nowhere, we find dozens of these amazing images etched into the earth on a massive scale. These Nazca lines are so large that you can only actually make out the shape from the sky, from a bird's eye view. On ground level, it's impossible to see the full image. And for that reason, it's hard to understand how they created these huge images and straight lines so perfectly without being able to monitor their work from the sky. I mean, some of these lines extend several kilometers and are perfectly straight. And check out this one image at Nazca that looks like a mandala of some sort. It is just truly exceptional. Just think about how difficult it would have been to actually create this using primitive tools. We also find this massive figure carved into the hillside. This is called the Nazca astronaut, and I mean, what do you make of this? who are they waving to? I definitely do understand the theory that these geoglyphs were made as messages to the gods above. I just don't think that's the full story here, because whoever made these Nazca lines weren't just making images in the earth. They were literally terraforming the terrain. It's like they leveled entire hilltops and etched these massive lines into the earth. If this was done by primitive tools, there's just no rational explanation as to why they would spend so much effort just etching these straight lines into the ground in the middle of the desert. Truly unbelievable. The fifth site is called Kailasa Temple, located in India. As you can see here, this entire structure was carved out of the side of this mountain. Not a single brick or stone was laid, which makes this the largest monolithic structure in the entire world. And it's hard to comprehend the level of planning and precision that had to go into this without making one single mistake, because it's a complex structure with stairways, water drainage systems, secret passages, bridges, hidden chambers, and more. And almost every inch is covered in intricate and detailed, beautiful carvings. This was executed flawlessly. I mean, this is really an immense work of art. You can see how large this temple is when compared to people. The builders removed an estimated 500,000 tons of rock, which is an unbelievable amount of work no matter how you look at it. But one of the very strange mysteries here is that we don't actually know where all of that rock went. All those thousands of tons of excavated rock, we can't find it anywhere. We've searched within hundreds of kilometers of the site. Thousands of tons of rock vanished without a trace. How is that possible? If this site was made with hammers and chisels, wouldn't all the excavated rock be discarded within the immediate area of the site? Deep inside the structure, there's actually an inner network of caves and caverns. Kailasa Temple is part of a larger cave system called the Ellora Caves that have existed for thousands of years. However this temple was created, there is no denying that it required extremely advanced knowledge and mastery in many different fields. Even today, we would struggle mightily to replicate this incredible structure, making it one of the most mysterious sites in the world. Let's now travel to Petra in Jordan, which is similar to Kailasa Temple in the sense that the huge stone structures at Petra are carved right out of the rock. And take a moment to appreciate the unbelievably massive scale here. Look how huge these structures are relative to people. This structure here is called the Treasury, and it's more than 40 meters or 130 feet high. And this one is called the Monastery, and it's even larger. When I look at these doorways and these chambers, I mean, I really wonder why they were created to this scale. Because even if they made these structures just a few feet shorter, that would have been way less work. But again, it's not just the size, it's the level of precision that's really incredible. Inside of these structures, there are these massive chambers, and it's strange that they're essentially empty. I mean, what was all this space used for? Petra is attributed to a group of people called the Nabateans, who were a nomadic, tent-dwelling people. And really, like a nomadic group of people constructed this entire magnificent site. Personally, I strongly suspect that the Nabateans didn't create this site, but found it and re-inhabited it. Ultimately, the simple fact is, we don't know who originally built this site. The seventh ancient site is called Teotihuacan. It's located nearby Mexico City, and the name Teotihuacan roughly translates to City of the Gods. And the local legends say that this site was created by divine beings. This was the largest city in the Western Hemisphere for many centuries. It's a huge complex with 2 massive pyramids and hundreds of smaller pyramids. And yet we don't actually know who built this city. We have no idea what happened to its inhabitants. For some reason, it seems to have been abandoned thousands of years ago, and we have no idea why. There are no written records or hieroglyphics found anywhere. And as a result, we can't find any evidence of who ruled over this site. We don't know how they were able to construct all these massive pyramids and sustain thousands of people. And so in other words, just about every aspect of this site is a complete mystery. Almost predictably, we found a number of tunnels underneath these structures. And less than 10% of this site has been excavated, so who knows what is still waiting to be unearthed here at Teotihuacan. From Mexico, we'll travel to Peru, where we find a site called Sacsayhuaman. And this whole area in Peru and South America is a hotspot for mysterious ancient sites, but Sacsayhuaman is undoubtedly one of the most incredible. These walls here are built out of these massive interlocking stones like a giant jigsaw puzzle. Some of these stones weigh up to 300 tons. This is a very unique style of construction, using all these irregularly shaped massive stones which fit together so precisely that these joins are often watertight. You can't even fit a piece of paper between these rocks. And the walls themselves are earthquake resistant. Just by looking at these walls, you can tell it's strange, it's incredible, it's hard to understand why they would have built in this style. It seems like it would have been a lot more work than just using regularly shaped blocks. There used to be a structure sitting in the middle of these walls, but it's been destroyed over time, and we can only wonder what was going on within those walls. The ninth ancient site is called the Longyou Caves, and this is another strange mystery. The Longyou Caves are located in China, and this is a group of 36 artificially made caverns that are a complete enigma. We have no idea who built them or why they were created. These caves were only recently discovered in 1992 when a farmer began pumping water from a local pond. And it turns out that there's a whole system of more than 30 of these massive underground caverns. And apparently very good records were kept in that region, but there is not one single record of the construction of these caverns. Just like at the Kailasa temple, the thousands of tons of stone that was excavated is nowhere to be found. And one of the strangest features here is that all of these 30 caverns are carved out in the same way, these uniform bands of parallel lines that cover the entire cavern from floor to ceiling. And the question is, why? Why was this done, and for what purpose? In my opinion, it's a little ridiculous to think that they chiseled underground in the dark to this meticulous level of perfectly parallel lines just for artistic effect. In my perspective, it's very clear what these are. These are tool marks. The ancient builders were using some technology that carved out the stone in this way. And based on the fact that all these lines are perfectly parallel and uniform, in my opinion, the clear conclusion is that this was some sort of machine or power tool that was carving out this rock. Last but not least, the 10th site takes us to the Greek islands. This site is called the Drakospita, or Dragon Houses, located on a Greek island called Euboea. The Dragon Houses are more than 20 of these ancient megalithic structures. The builders of these dragon houses were moving around these massive stone slabs and fitting them together, again without the use of any mortar. I mean, just look at some of these pictures, it's incredible. And this one in particular has a circular roof, which to me, this is obvious evidence of highly advanced and sophisticated engineering skills and knowledge. And we have no idea who built these Drakospita. This is a direct quote from the Wikipedia page. There is no accepted theory about the identity of the builders, nor an agreed estimation on their dating. How is that possible when we supposedly know so much about the history of ancient Greece? It's such a curious and strange fact that all 20 of these dragon houses occur in such a small area on this same island. They're not found anywhere else. What does that tell us? It's as if they didn't belong to any civilization that we know of, but that's a paradox, because according to our knowledge, this advanced type of construction could only be done by an advanced civilization. Who were the builders? How did they accomplish these incredible feats of engineering and architecture? There are just so many questions here, but I'm going to leave it at that for now. So those are 10 of the most mysterious ancient sites from all around the world, and it goes without saying that this video barely scratches the surface. There are thousands of these ancient megalithic sites, most of which you and I have never even heard of before. And that just goes to show how deep this rabbit hole really goes. I don't know, guys, what do you think? I would love to hear your thoughts. Please leave them in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, consider supporting me on Patreon. It really does help. I'm sending so much love to every single one of you out there, and I will see you in the next video.